Friends, one more short meditations and transformations before the year is over. It's New Year's Eve 2024. We're heading in I'm on the East Coast of the United States. Some of you are already there, but in another hour and a half approximately, we here, where I'm sitting in Orlando, Florida, will enter 2025. And I thought that this was the perfect time for me to just share with you the way that we have been moving and are heading into 2025. And then I want you to stick around at the end of this very short video because I'm also going to invite you to a special year-long community of practice. You're not going to want to miss that. So this week previously I had heard an amazing quote from Dougal Hine, philosopher and writer and author Dougal Hine. And this week I heard another amazing quote from him. So I'm going to start with the quote that I just heard and then circle back to the one that I'd heard maybe a couple of months ago when I was watching an amazing video of his while he was sharing from his new book at a retreat that he was invited to speak at. And so the quote that I've heard more recently actually came from Katie Teague's compilation video In the Making, where she does these amazing videos of some of my favorite philosophers and thinkers today, like Jeremy Jepson and Dougal Hine and Jonathan Rowson and Benita Roy, and the list goes on and on and on. And on this video, this short compilation video that Katie just released, I'll be sure to make sure that we tag that here as well, so you can take a look at that. You're not going to miss it. It's really short, 5 minutes or something like that. Dougal says, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'll get close, I know. I've read it 10 times in the last 2 days. You know when the end of a world is at hand because the future of that particular world is coming to an end. The story of that world doesn't have much less to run, doesn't have much more to run. Let me just say it again. You know when the end of a world is at hand because the future of that world doesn't have much more to run. That was a paraphrase, obviously. You can see which one of the quotes, the way I quoted that, works best for you. In my own words, the future that we sort of envision of the world that we've lived in, the world that we're in, this is one of the reasons I have a problem with the future being in the present. I would say, Lord forbid, I hope that is not true. Because the only way for us to escape and not go around, but as Joanna Macy says, to go through the meta crisis that we find ourselves in, a crisis of heart and soul, and yes, of mind as well, but we focus so much on mind and we've forgotten that this is a heart and soul change, is we perceive the future to be embedded in the seeds of the present. But we have to have a higher level, as Einstein said, of consciousness, of ways of thinking, if we're going to go through that meta crisis and come out in a transformative space. We cannot solve the problems that we have, Einstein said, with the same level of consciousness that created them. You can't be in this box, try to solve the problems in that box from within the box. It's just never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. And so I'm probably getting off track just a little bit, but just let me say for my field that I love to work in on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, a futures thinking and a foresight, futurism, whatever you want to call it. I know we hate futurism, but some people call it that, so I'm simply saying that for this video. I know the problems with the phrases, but let's not get hung up. We have increasingly seen this field bend towards the present, the box, the level of consciousness that's creating the meta crisis, and being used as a means to make relevant that system so that it will continue to find success, the success that it deems to be successful, the goals that it's trying to reach, and fulfill, which have not been helpful to humanity in any way. As a matter of fact, the opposite. It is destroying it's destroying people, planet, and the cosmos. It's destroying our consciousness. It's destroying our ability to think, our critical reasoning. It is destroying the very spirit of our creativity and ingenuity. I keep seeing all these articles. How come we don't innovate the way that we used to? How come we don't think big thoughts like we used to? How come we're not trying to go to the moon or whatever the case might be? We're simply trying to survive. And when we have lowered the standard of a keystone species connecting to the rest of the universe and the cosmos as simply being survival, then we expunge from ourselves and from everything, all the activity that we're involved in, our ability to thrive. Because we, like the rest of the cosmos, should be thriving. So let's get back on track here again. So Dougal said that you know a world is ending when you see that its future doesn't have any story left. That story doesn't have much left to run in. And so isn't it interesting that when in Futures Thinking and Foresight, where we repeatedly say that we're not predicting, that we're not forecasting, but rather we're exploring alternative possibilities, that there are a group of individuals that would work in the field that would say, why are you saying that, my way of thinking about the future is not legitimate if I'm working to co-opt the field? and not the field. Forget the field for a minute. Forget about the field. Think about the future. If we are not thinking about alternative futures where all thrive, none thrive. And that's what Dougal means when he says a world is coming to an end. I don't think that you could be a critical, reasoning, intelligent individual today and not think that the world that we live in, the systemic world, the economic world, the political world, the governmental world, the social world that we are now living in is collapsing. And the environmental world is collapsing. And so foresight and futures thinking not only will not help it survive, it should not be trying to help it survive. Why? Because if we are told all the time that futures thinking is about thinking of alternative futures, then I'm going to think of futures outside of the system that's killing us. So I cannot express to you enough that our organizations and governments today, I don't want to see them necessarily go away, but I do want to see them thinking much differently, thinking like the cosmos thinks. We need a cosmovision, as Bayo Kumalafe would say. And that means our organizations need that too. Our governments need that. Our societies need that. Our cultures need that. And I cannot express to you enough that futures thinking is embedded in its very DNA, is a way to guide humanity and ourselves and individually, collectively, our organizations, our governments, toward alternative visions of the future, alternative possibilities of the future, not to help our current systems that have driven us into a meta crisis to survive, to thrive, because there's no thriving in that death cult. There's no thriving in that death cult. So the second phrase, since I've already gone on long enough, and then I want to invite you to the community of practice. Dougal Hines said that he was at a retreat and a young individual who was very just despondent about life, was invited to come to the retreat, spent a week there, saw these people community with one another. And at the end of the retreat, he said, the young individual, 15, 16 years old, told me a quote that I put in the book here. You can read it for yourself. Blew me away. And the quote was, I can see how all of you are building a world worth living for. So this relates directly to what I was already saying and to Dougal's previous quote. It's not that the world is ending and poof, that's it, and it's all gone. This is about moving, as Joanna Macy says again, through, not avoiding, not somehow escaping, as I said earlier, but actually moving through. There's no way around, there's only through. And through doesn't mean that we get from one end of the meta crisis to another and we have somehow maintained our present system. That system cannot be maintained. I say with confidence in this video that one way or another, the systems that we so desperately love, that give us reward, that give us stature, that we're working in right now, they are, and they will collapse. It's historical. Many systems have collapsed before. The one you're living in is going to collapse as well. It is collapsing. It has collapsed. So as futurists, yes. And this I say for 2025, we will continue working for a world worth living for, because the world that we're in right now is not one worth living for. But it's in our hearts, and it is in our souls, and it's in our spirits, it's in the awe and the wonder and the enchantment. It is right there. We are experiencing it already. If in futures thinking, we are using the capacity of what that means to imagine these alternative futures, to employ imaginal anticipation, and then to transform. Because all living things transform. If things don't transform, and that doesn't mean they transform every day, all day long, but if things aren't on the path of transformation, they're already dead, they just don't know it. And that includes your organization, that includes your government, your city, your family, whatever the case might be. Awaken, O sleeper. As Benita Roy says, this causes me to fall in love with the future and to dream the future awake. That's beautiful. I want to invite you to, if you like what I'm saying here, and this is what you feel for 2025 as well, that futures isn't about critical risk assessment. There's no more time for risk assessment. It is time for transformation. You're not going through the meta crisis on risk assessment. It's not going to happen. Transformation from one world to another. We're literally at this point talking about building new worlds. There's no more, these trends will get you X more amount of dollars. We have to build new worlds. And yes, presidents and CEOs of corporations, yes, C-suite, that is your goal. That's what you need to be doing. So you can keep trying to do the old thing where you're exponentializing your profits. That's destroying us all. And it's destroying you as well. But I know you don't feel it because, we won't go into that. We'll save it for another video. I'm begging you to feel it. I'm asking you and begging you to feel it. But with or without you, the system will collapse and a new world is emerging. We just, on December 10th, just a few weeks ago, held our initial, the kickoff webinar for what we're calling the Dragonfly Journey. The Dragonfly Journey, why in the world are we calling that? Well, if you haven't been paying attention, and where have you been? For the last several years, we've been hosting a yearly retreat that we call Transformations of Natural Foresight. You may know the Natural Foresight Framework is what guides our work here at TFSX. And we have companies now that we've trained all over the world and individuals who are certified, who are all trained in Natural Foresight Framework. And then we have a foundational training course called Foundations in Natural Foresight. We used to have a multi-month training called Activations in Natural Foresight, but now that's expanded to other learning opportunities in our ever-growing learning ecosystem here at TFSX. And then several years ago, we started holding a retreat for the philosophy of holoptic foresight dynamics. Now, I'm going to place a link for all of this later because maybe this is the first time you've ever been hearing about this. What is holoptic foresight dynamics? It's a philosophy that you need to know, because it helps us to move from one world to another. It is a philosophy of literally transitioning from a toxic, linear, mechanistic, extractive, exploitative, exponential world to a world of collective, connective, cooperative, collaborative, co-creative, emergence and transformation and anticipation and awe and wonder and enchantment. The in-between is the liminality, and here is this world that is alive, abductive, liminal, interconnected, vibrant, and emergent. And so every other month in 2025, starting in February, we're going to be hosting a 90-minute webinar to build the Dragonfly community. That's an extension of those retreats that we've already been holding every year, and we will have our next live retreat in 2026. But in 2025, while there's not a retreat, we'll be building up to that by continually building our community, a global community of Dragonfly journeyers. And if you don't know what that means, again, I'm going to put the link to Holoptic Foresight Dynamics. The dragonfly is the mascot of HFD, of Holoptic Foresight Dynamics. It's a philosophy that undergirds a better way of futuring, a better way of foresighting. And so throughout the year, we're going to be having this really immersive, exciting community. We'll meet every other month, have a 90-minute live webinar with people from around the world. We will be discussing thought leaders like Nora Bateson and Benita Roy and Sophie Strand and so many others that we've already interviewed and will continue to interview. We'll be watching those interviews as a community, coming in, discussing how they connect to the HFD foundational philosophy of a cosmovision of a world worth living for. And of course, we'll explain HFD again, but I'm also going to put the kickoff webinar in the link so that you can watch that as well. Video's gone on too long already. I hope you do join us. If you become a member of the collective at my.tfsx.com, the collective, $165 a year, you'll have access to everything that's already on TFSX, which is a treasure trove of goodness, plus access to the Dragonfly Journey community of practice as we continue to build it. And those who are involved will help build the next transformation retreat. And then we'll gather in 26 again. It'll be amazing. But every other month during 2026, we're going to be gathering together. I hope you join us. I hope that you've had a wonderful 2024. I hope that you've had struggles in 2024 because you need those. And I have, we all have. And I hope it's made you stronger, not just individually, but collectively together. Because we have to love one another, care, empathy, love. These are key words in futures thinking because those are the words that define and demonstrate a world worth living for. And I'll see you next year. Bye-bye.